violates the Civil Rights Act. In Georgia, a federal judge put on hold provisions of that state's law barring the provision of food and water to voters waiting in line. Both laws were passed in 2021.
That's correspondent Norman Hall. UBS will pay U.S. authorities $1.44 billion to settle the last lingering legal case over Wall Street's role in the housing bubble.
The Swiss bank agreed to pay a civil penalty over how it handled the sale of 40 mortgage-backed securities issued in 2006 and 2007. The settlement argues that UBS bankers gave false and misleading statements about the health of the mortgages.
That is correspondent Jeremy House reporting. More details at srnnews.com.
The following program is sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Get ready with your legal questions and call Patrick now. 877-943-9673. Again, that's 877-943-9673. The law office is open. And now your host, Patrick Smith.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, and the number to be part of our show today, Saturday, August 19th, 877-943-9673. Again, that toll-free number, 877-943-9673. The legal help you've waited all week for is here live in studio. Happy to help any way we can. If you have a legal question that popped up during the week, 877-943-9673. And with us in studio, our usual crew, Yumiko the producer, Peter the intern, Brian the call screener, standing by to screen your calls and get you on the air with me, yours truly, Attorney Patrick Smith. And again, this show is live every Saturday, and we're here as a legal service to the community. So to answer your legal questions absolutely free of charge. And in between your questions, we kind of talk about whatever different legal subjects that I want to talk about to kind of educate and edify the populace out there. And you can always call in with a question or comment about something that we're discussing or something completely unrelated. Very much an open forum. We welcome your dialogue and questions. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. You can always email your question, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, or submit the question directly through the website, attorneypatricksmith.com, which is, by the way, a lot of people asking if there's a location where we can go back and listen to former broadcast of the show. They're all podcasts through the website. Just scroll down on the homepage to the radio link, and you will find all of the previous broadcasts of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. So if you had a favorite show, you can go back and listen on demand there. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. Live and local, open studio lines. Happy to answer your legal questions. 877-943-9673. Well, we are getting into, well, we're already in the middle of preseason football, so I thought I'd kick us off today with a football story. According to People magazine, Michael Oher, who inspired The Blind Side, alleges that his family made millions while lying about adopting him. In a legal filing Monday, the retired NFL star alleged that the family tricked him into signing conservatorship papers when he was 18. Michael Oher, the retired NFL star, whose life inspired the Oscar-nominated film The Blind Side, filed a legal petition to terminate a conservatorship on Monday, alleging that Liam Toohey and Sean Toohey lied about adopting him while making millions off of his name. Made him conservatorship over him, and there was no consequential difference between adopted and entering into the conservatorship. We'll talk a little bit about the differences there in the legal description. The quote is, Michael trusted the Tooheys and signed where they told him to sign. The legal filing obtained by People on Monday claims. What he signed, however, and unknown to Michael until February 2023, were not adoption papers or the equivalent of adoption papers. Instead, the filing claims that the Tooheys had Oher sign legal papers that made them his conservators. The 2004 conservatorship filing, also reviewed by People, shows that the Oher signed the papers despite being 18 years old at the time and having no known physical or psychological disabilities that would more often lead to a legal adult to conservatorship. So the conservatorship versus guardianship in Florida, there's some key distinctions here. Under Florida statute, in Florida, you can file a petition for guardianship when a family member has become incapacitated, due to bodily injury or illness, which would affect their judgment or decisions made for themselves. Peter, you and I see this all the time at the office when someone will become incapacitated because of, say an accident or have some sort of mental disability that's now going to permanently affect them. And you can go a long way to avoid guardianship with good planning, with a good power of attorney and designation of a pre-need guardian. But not everyone does that. So guardianship is always available. If the petition is granted and someone's appointed guardian, you assume specific duties for this person and basically become that person, and you're responsible for their financial and all of their medical decision making. Conservatorship, a little bit different. So under Florida Statute 747.035, a conservatorship has all the power, rights, and duties that a guardian is granted. However, while guardians handle legal and financial matters of an incapacitated person, conservators handle the affairs of absentees, which is a defined term for incapacitated individuals and minors. An absentee, according to Florida statute, is a defined term which means a person who owns property in the state of Florida or who has disappeared and is presumably dead or went missing due to their amnesia, mental derangement, or any other mental illness. So you see the distinction there. Basically, the gist of it is such that a conservatorship is more about a missing absentee, and it's more about preserving financial assets for someone who's in the state of Florida. A guardianship more all-encompassing, not only financial, but also medical decision-making. So there's kind of the distinction there. But the key point in the article was if Mr. Orr had no evidence that he exhibited any symptoms, then what was the point of the conservatorship altogether? And actually, the attorney for the Tuohys released a clip. Yumiko, do we have that clip? So this is the attorney for the Tuohy family releasing their formal statement. Go ahead and play it, Yumiko.
This petition was built around an alleged fact that Mr. Orr did not know that he was not the adoptive son of the Tuohys, but rather there was a conservatorship. He alleges he just found that out in February of 2023. Fact of the matter is, he wrote a book in 2011. And in 2011, he acknowledged in that book on 3 separate occasions in that book that there was in fact a conservatorship.
The Tuohys did not control any of Mr. Orr's finances. Mr. Orr picked his own agent. When he signed Pro, Mr. Orr signed his own contract and negotiated it through his agent.
All right, so there you go. I mean, you clearly see that if that's accurate, if there's an admission that you know what you're doing back in 2011, that's going to sort of torpedo the petition filed last week. But it does bring to highlight the difference between conservatorship and guardianship. And there's some famous examples of conservatorship. I think everyone kind of recalls the famous conservatorship regarding Britney Spears. There were some very public mental health issues, and her father was granted conservatorship over her finances and personal decision-making. And after 13 years, the judge ruled to end the conservatorship, and Spears regained control of her finances. So it is something that you see end. That's a difference, I think, also from a guardianship. I think when you see a lot of guardianships, especially for people who are elderly and incapacitated, the end of that guardianship is they're passing into eternity. I think it's rarer to see someone regain capacity in that circumstance. But so I think with the conservatorship, you see those end with someone regaining their health or becoming present again more frequently. So, all right, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number. We're going to go to our first caller of the day. We're going to go to Bradenton and talk to Bob. Bob, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hi, good morning, Patrick. Fast question, not related. I'm noticing more and more when speaking to somebody, out loud with my phone in the room, I'm suddenly getting lots of ads, for that particular product. So, for example, if we're talking about a water conditioning system, lo and behold, I'm getting 10 ads for water conditioning. And my question is, how is that legal as meaning that they're listening, but I can't record somebody with a recording device without them knowing it? So I just need a little guidance as to how the phone companies can pull this off.
So my guess would be the phone company probably gets away with it when buried within those terms and services conditions, and you say, I agree, instead of reading the 8 pages of small print. It's probably buried in there. In addition to that, if you notice when you use certain apps, it asks, do you give the app permission to use your microphone and record you? And you're thinking, hey, I can do voice command, but you give them permission to use the microphone. You're not limiting it specifically for, when you want it to record, you're giving them permission to use the microphone whenever they want. And I've noticed something similar too. And I've actually tested this theory, Bob. So it's funny you bring it up, where I will specifically go around saying a particular product that I have never purchased, never discussed with anyone, and just say it prolifically around my phone. And then sure enough, if you open up Facebook or your browser, here's an ad. So yeah, I agree with you. I certainly think there's some sort of listening algorithm that's sort of taking advantage of that when we give it permission.
Yeah, I got to look into it. I think there's a way of turning all this off. I'm not sure, but I think that's worthy of maybe a little bit of, not a whole show, but just some type of expert to show people like you and I how to kind of cut back on this, because it's kind of crazy.
Well, the allegations against TikTok about allegedly being a Chinese spy operation, it sounds like it could be a good follow-up piece for something like that, where they're collecting data, and of course the microphone will go a long way with. But we'll have we can definitely do some research into that, Bob. And the better question, and I think the better conversation is, what if you haven't given permission? What if they're listening without consent? I think that probably rises to the level of potentially being criminal activity.
Yeah, good question. Good question. By the way, for your fans, I've been to your office and you're currently working for me, so it's been a great experience. I just want to say thanks very much.
Bob, I appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much for calling in, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. That's a great topic. So, Peter the intern, let's turn research loose on that and see what we can find. Before we took Bob's call, we were discussing the Michael Oher saga, with him petitioning to end his conservatorship. And I was talking to Yumiko, the producer, before the show. And Yumiko, you said that there is murmurings about Sandra Bullock's Oscar. What did you hear?
That they're planning to take it away from her because of her portrayal in the movie.
Because of the related subsequent lawsuit over the conservatorship?
Yes.
What did Sandra Bullock do?
I don't know. I just saw tweets about it, so I don't know what.
Do you remember who tweeted it?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
All right. Well, if it was someone who actually mattered, let me know. If it was just people tweeting that Sandra Bullock doesn't deserve her Oscar, her role, she was amazing.
I remember it was Pop Base. Pop Base tweeted it.
All right. So as long as it wasn't like, the National Film Academy or something that actually mattered, I don't think we have anything to worry about. No, I thought she was amazing in that film.
Yeah, she was.
And
she
Tim
was
McGraw too. Who knew Tim McGraw could act?
Right.
That was the first time I realized that. So I mean, yeah. No, I don't think she deserves to. Peter, you think she deserves to lose her Oscar for that?
No, I think that she should probably keep it. I mean, she didn't do anything. She did her job, which is to act and play that role.
Yeah, I think that's just something to keep the story in the news cycle a little bit longer. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. You can be part of the show. 877-943-9673. We're live and local, happy to help. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. And as Bob mentioned, if you want to schedule your complimentary consultation at the office, 877-754-6764. That is your office line to reach us Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. 877-754-6764. You can also book an appointment online at attorneypatricksmith.com or by emailing me directly, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. And that's for any of the office locations down in Sarasota, Sun City Center, Clearwater, or any of our office locations throughout the state. But to talk to us today, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. Maybe you have an opinion on the Michael Oher story you'd like to share, or any other legal topic you'd like to discuss. 877-943-9673. Before I move on to our next story, a very special thank you to the Indian Rocks Foundation for hosting me this past week. And it was absolutely amazing because there was a very special guest in attendance. And Peter the intern, you may or may not know this. Did you know that Pastor Charlie Martin is back?
Is he?
He's back. He's back. And he's actually attending the Wills and Trust seminars now that we're doing at Indian Rocks Foundation. So Joe Racy was nice enough to appear on behalf of the Indian Rocks Foundation and handle my introduction this past Wednesday. And I was actually going on immediately before Pastor Charlie. And I said something during my intro. I said, if you'd have told me growing up here, going to church here, I said that I was one day going to be part of a presentation where Joe Racy will be introducing you and you'll be speaking immediately before Pastor Charlie. I said, you could have knocked me over with a feather. So again, thank you to everyone who turned out at Indian Rocks. It was an absolutely wonderful evening, and enjoyed the crowd and the questions that we got during the event. So we'll keep you tuned to more speaking engagements that we're doing. If you need a speaker, you can always reach out directly to the office at 877-754-6764 or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, and we will be happy to come out and speak to your club, group, or organization. And we even create custom topics. If you have a particular topic you want to hear discussed, we'll be happy to create a presentation for your group. But to talk to us today, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. All right, let's go all the way down to Cape Coral. We're going to talk to Fred. Fred, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hey, Patrick Smith. Hey, listen,
Fred.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I got a friend who's fairly wealthy, and his spouse, does a lot of drinking and driving, and he's warned her a bunch of times about this, and he's wondering if there's any way that he can protect himself if, for example, she continues this activity and if he gets in a little trouble. Is there anything he can do to, being married, that he can protect himself? She just doesn't want to listen, but he doesn't want a divorce. You know, that might cost more.
Well, I
got
think,
any ideas how he can, just not be related to her activities like that?
well, one strategy that we like to employ to limit liability when it comes to automobiles, because automobiles are sort of the number one liability generator, whether you're actively drinking and driving or not. Although I think that obviously increases the chances of it becoming a liability.
Of course.
Here's what he should do, in my opinion. Number one, have a long, hard conversation with her that she needs to stop that. It's just way too dangerous that she puts everyone else's
several
families.
times.
Yeah, that's just so selfish and irresponsible of her. Number two, he should put the car in her name alone. It should not be held in both names. He's done that already?
Yeah.
And
my friend's done that already.
Yeah, I mean, then I think he's basically done everything he can do at this point. And has she been arrested yet for a DUI?
No, but we know what she does.
Well, it's coming. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I mean, the boys in blue are out there every weekend to keep everybody safe. And when you have someone who's so reckless to consistently do this and put everyone's families at risk just because they don't know how to take an Uber. I mean, it's just, in a world without Uber.
It's selfish. I get it. And, you can only talk to her when she's sober about it. But I was just wondering, other than that, it's the thing that, you could do to maybe keep yourself out of the lawsuit.
I mean, take her keys away. I mean, if I see that happen, of course, we never let her, but and she just drinks a lot. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, Fred, I mean, it's a tough spot, but it's just one of those situations where, I don't know, show her videos of, DUI accidents where the person drunk driving walks away fine and, someone passed away because of that. I mean, this is a stupid decision that is permanently affecting the lives of other families, and it's completely avoidable. Yeah, it's a tough spot,
right, well,
but that's what I think from a liability perspective. Put the car in her name, put her on an island at least, and hopefully then you get some sort of attendance by the entirety's protection. That's where, you have all five unities. So, yeah.
Same advice I've been getting. I got you. All right. Thank you, boss. You have a great show.
Fred, thank you. All right. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. And that one really gets my blood boiling because it's just, I have a son who's on the roadways, and to know that there are people out there that are just that reckless of everyone else's lives on the road. I don't know. It just, that kind of really annoys me. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of today's show. And we'd be happy to talk to you about any legal question you may have at all. That was a great kind of asset protection question. The asset protection angle is not lost on me. And what we were talking about there with Fred was sort of having that tenants by the entireties protection. That's where sort of what we call the unities. There are 5 unities that need to be present: time, title, interest, possession, and marriage. And without wandering off into too much detail, if that's all the case, married couples can get special creditor protection status. And so that's for the assets you hold together. But that means if you put an asset in just one spouse's name, like an automobile, and that auto's in an accident, you have a better chance at protecting the stuff that you own together as a husband and wife, because now the creditor only has a claim against the spouse that owned the vehicle and was driving. The spouse that was not involved in the driving or in the owning of the vehicle is protected. And so the jointly held assets under that tenants by the entireties rule can lend some additional creditor protection as well. That's the advice we were giving Fred, or Fred's friend in that case. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of today's show. 877-943-9673. And we started off with the Michael Oher drama regarding the Blind Side film saga and his petitioning to end the conservatorship, claiming that he did not understand he was entering into conservatorship, and hence the movie The Blind Side not accurately representing his position. And speaking of blind, let's make a pivot to our next story. Publix Supermarkets has issued a new policy regarding emotional support animals. So according to Boca News Now, it is their response is, "You are welcome. That's our message to the hundreds of readers who took the time to send us a note following our Saturday night report that Publix appears to be taking serious action to stop shoppers from bringing dogs into their stores, a critical problem that violates federal law. For months, we have been publishing reader-submitted photos of shoppers who appear to be disregarding window signs, reminding them that only professionally trained service animals are permitted into supermarket. That means dogs." And here's the other one, and the story says this, and Nate the intern found it in his research as well, "or small horses." We'll circle back to that. That's not going to be lost on us. That are trained to provide a legitimate service, like assisting those with vision issues, helping someone with epilepsy. An emotional support dog, or ESA, is not a service animal. So there are some differences there. So again, someone who is a service animal, it is specifically trained to assist a person with certain need or disability. And again, only dogs or miniature horses are qualified to be service animals. So in my mind, I was wondering, how did we get from dogs to dogs and miniature horses? I would have loved to have been a fly on the room in the committee discussion. And if anyone out there has knowledge as to how we landed on miniature horses too being trained service animals, I would love to hear the background on that. But emotional support animals can be any type of animal that provides a person with emotional support or comfort. These animals do not require any special training. Now, you'd be surprised, just in doing the show prep and talking with people, how many people don't know there's a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal. Only service animals are allowed to accompany their owners into public areas, including Publix. Misrepresenting an emotional support animal as a trained service animal is a misdemeanor and punishable by up to 6 months in jail or $1,000 fine. So service animals in public areas are required to be kept under the owner's control, whether that be by leash, tether, or verbal command. So if you have a thought on that, and they do, I'm not going to read them, but they have a long list of people commenting and sort of cheering Publix's new policy. So if you have an opinion on it, we'd be happy to hear from you. And, Publix is, of course, the dominant shopping center force here in Florida, and along with Disney. It seems like every family has a connection to either Disney World or Publix or both at some point. So someone in your family worked for either or both of those organizations. So 877-943-9673. Call in with your comment or legal question. 877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. And next we're going to go to Tampa and we're going to talk to Frank. Frank, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm great, Frank. How can we help?
I'm wondering, if being divorced as a couple is better for taxes and retirement.
If being divorced as a couple is better for taxes and retirement. So do you have a financial advisor you work with, Frank? Frank? We might have lost Frank. Yeah, we lost Frank. Well, the question I was going to ask Frank was if he had a financial advisor, because that's really a question you would kind of aim at your financial advisor as to what would be optimal. But I'm trying to think of a circumstance where somehow being divorced would be better from a legal perspective. And I can't really think of one off the top of my head. And if you're a family law attorney and you're out there and you know the answer to that question as to why it would be beneficial to be divorced, call in. I'll give you some airtime and chat about why it would be beneficial to be divorced. But otherwise, it would really be a question for your financial advisor. And as far as any tax advantages, I say check with your CPA. You know, we have Dwayne Bischoff on the show. Maybe just call back Frank the next time we have Dwayne on, and you can ask him, or if you want to talk to him sooner, you can always reach out to me during the office hours, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with Dwayne. And he answers questions that come in from the show all the time, and he's happy to lend himself to that. So if you want to reach out, the office line again, 877-754-6764. Just give me a call at the office during the week, and I'll put you in touch with a couple of financial advisors or CPAs who can answer that from a financial perspective as to not whether or not divorced in retirement would be advantageous. I'm curious what the follow-up is going to be on that. So, but if you want to talk to us today, open studio lines, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. So you can give us a call now. We're live and local, happy to help any way that we can. Peter, the intern, do you have any good emotional support animal stories? What's the most interesting emotional support animal? Because of course there's always the famous stories about, you know, the peacock on the flight and things like that. Have you ever seen an emotional support animal?
I've seen people use their like bearded dragons as their emotional support animals. I also know a lot of friends who they can't have dogs wherever they're staying, whether it's like condo or like apartment. And so they just go pay, it's like $300 and they can get certified as a service animal.
Oh, that's a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this black market for becoming a service animal. We're using quotes. It's terrible for air quotes on the radio, but I didn't know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So people are getting, but according to the statute, it has to be either a dog or a miniature horse.
Mm-hmm. So it's usually dogs, the people I've seen do it. But also, like, how is Publix going to prove that this is an actual service animal instead of a emotional support? Because you can buy a service dog vest on Amazon.
Well, I think that's the, you know, where that statute comes in and saying misrepresenting it. But you're like, how hard are they going to double down on this and challenge someone? I mean, this is where shopping is a pleasure. You know, shopping is not an interrogation here.
Shopping's a pleasure. Show me your papers.
Right. I mean, it's a matter of how much are they going to press customers on this topic. And I kind of got a feeling that it's going to be a situation where if you do your shopping quietly with your animal, I think it's people who are being more ostentatious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the photos online are like people with these massive strollers and their animals are in the strollers that are creating a distraction as opposed to people, you know, doing it sort of quietly and respectfully. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local studio line. And now we're going to go to Tampa and talk to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how can we help you today?
Hi, thanks. Well, I was thinking about Fred and his friend's issue with the wife that drinks and drives.
Yes.
Isn't there a device that you can put in a car where before you can turn on the ignition, you have to breathe into it? It's like a breathalyzer.
Is that may be the technical name? Do you know the technical name, Peter?
It's called a breath lock.
Now, how do you know that?
We both know the person that used to have one on his car.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know he had a breath lock on his car. Yeah. So the breath lock, that's a great idea. So Fred, if you're still listening, Elizabeth in Tampa is calling it with a perfect solution. I don't know how well that's going to support the marriage continuing, Elizabeth, because imagine if you're that wife and you go out to the car and all of a sudden he's like, by the way, there's a breath lock on your car. I mean, that's the moral equivalent of taking away her keys when she's been drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is she's probably going to be slightly resistant to accepting the breath lock, but it's a good idea. I think it shows remedial measures on Fred's part, at least.
Yeah. And if she's like agreeable when she's sober, you know, that might still do the trick.
Well, that's
know?
true. There is, there's the sober version of this gentleman's wife, and then there's the drunk version of the gentleman's wife. And when you've when you've had a conversation with one, that doesn't necessarily mean you've had a conversation with the other. And so that's a great point, Elizabeth. I mean, it's a concern about,
Oh, I come from a family of alcoholics. I'm just glad, it missed me, but I could have been the same way, and thanks be to God, it didn't happen that way for me. But yeah, dad alcoholic, brothers and sisters that are alcoholics. I come from a very large family. So just so you know, I know where this guy's coming from.
Well,
you worry about people.
It's a terrible illness, and you're 100% right. And Elizabeth, I appreciate you calling in and sharing that wisdom with us. So again, Fred, if you're listening, Elizabeth has a great idea. Have your friend put a breath lock, as Peter the intern called it, on his wife's car, and hopefully that'll lead to either her sobering up before she drives, or calling an Uber, or just not being so irresponsible with everybody else's lives on the road.
Can I say something about Publix?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Dogs shed. They shed hairs and everything else. And I don't want to be in the produce section around these hairy animals. I love animals.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I love riding horses. I love dogs. Not so much cats, but, dogs definitely. But the deal is, you know what? I really don't want, and those, I've seen their hairs just flying through the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these people that walk through, they're usually petting and stroking them, and, there's shedding that's going on. And to me, it's just a health hazard. I just don't like the idea of it. And for the people that are seriously impaired, not a problem. I have zero problem with that. But I do have a problem with people that do it. And I have a sister that used to do the same thing with her dogs. She'd go into Home Depot or to Publix or Winn-Dixie especially. And, just have, like they were little kids, to her. And she already had 4 kids, but, now that she's in her 70s, she wants, to just show off like that. So to me, it's just like, she's got a screw loose. She's one of the alcoholics in my family, by the way. So anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Elizabeth, I'm just getting this visual in my head of this. This is such a rich story. Now, just for the sake of good radio, do you mind if I play devil's advocate for a moment with you?
Sure.
Humans shed too.
That's true. Viruses and everything.
Right. So, I mean, in some ways, they say, and I don't know if it's a wives' tale. If you're a doctor, call in. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But for years, I heard that a bite from a human is like infinitely more dangerous than a bite from a canine. And so I think that, when you have to look at it that way, although I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, like if it's someone with a genuine service animal, yeah, it's worth, the dog shedding or whatever, just to help that human being out. I think it crosses the line when maybe it's not either a service animal or even emotional support animal. It's just someone who wants to have their pet with them, which is really what I think the policy that Publix is implementing is trying to police. Like, we are not here for your doggy play dates. We are here for people to purchase groceries. So that's kind of what I get a sense of what's going on.
Yeah. And I like the way that they put it, that you've got to keep your animal under control.
Yep.
Period.
Yep. Well, that's just good ownership of an animal, period. You don't want them running wild. So.
And by the way, because they did mention, because I was watching this on the news last night, and they did mention that they're not allowed to ask people. Is that against the law?
I don't have anything in the research here that shows that. I just know it's a crime apparently to misrepresent one. So I think that's where you have the vest on, and the vest is not, validly being displayed by the animal.
Got it. But if you watch Fox 13 News, in Tampa, you'll see where they did address that, where they would not be allowed to even ask them.
It kind of makes sense, just in sort of the general sense of health information privacy rules and the general trend and public policy on that. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much,
Elizabeth. Great call. Have a great Saturday.
You too.
All right,
God bless
bye-bye.
you. Thanks for what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. 877-943-9673. Elizabeth hanging up does open up a line. So if you've been trying to get in, give us a call now. 877-943-9673. We kicked off the show discussing the conservatorship suit filed by Michael Oher, the subject matter from the film The Blind Side. And then we pivoted into talking about Publix's new policy regarding emotional support animals not being permitted on store premises, only valid service animals. So if you have a comment on either of those stories or a legal question, 877-943-9673. Next, we're going to go to Sarasota and talk to Joanne. Joanne, welcome back to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How's life been for you? It's been a beat since you called in.
Yes, it's been a while. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it's been a beat since that's how the kids nowadays say it's been a few moments since you've called in.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was wondering. Okay, well, just one quick question, and I want to tell you a dog story. How old was this Michael Orr when they took him in?
So according to this, he signed the papers when he was 18. I don't know what age he was when they actually brought him into the family. Do you know, Peter?
Yeah, I think he was like on the cusp of 18, so like 17.
So like a few months earlier. So he was, according to the article and according to Peter, the intern, it's approximately late 17 years. And at 18, he actually signed the papers.
I wonder how old he is now.
I believe he's 34, I think I remember from the story. Yes, ma'am.
He kind of waited a while, didn't he? But anyway, I wanted to tell you a couple of animal stories.
Okay, we're all ears, Joanne.
Beg your pardon?
I said we're all ears. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was in a store the other day, and a woman had what I ultimately found out was a Chihuahua mixed with something else that was very tiny. And she had it on a leash that's not more than a thread, if you know what I mean. And the dog, of course, is wandering while she's shopping in this antique store. Well, I almost went over the leash and onto the floor. I mean, it was really quite frightening. But anyway, I managed not to. And, I said to her, you're not allowed to have dogs. I said very nicely, you're not allowed to have dogs in there. Oh, she said, he's a service dog. And I thought, and she looked perfectly fit and fine. And I thought, then she should keep that tiny little thing that can get stepped on in her arms.
Well, hold on. Let's back up a second. First of all, Joanne, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. Not everybody's, need for a service dog is visible to the naked eye.
Oh, I understand that. I have a disability.
Okay. Do you have a service? By the way, was this service animal wearing the appropriate service animal vest?
No, absolutely not. If it weighed 6 pounds, that was a lot.
Okay. And do you have a service animal? Because you mentioned you have disabilities yourself.
No.
Okay. So, but you were okay. The dog was okay. You almost fell, you said, but you did not.
Oh, yes.
Fall.
I really, had to do that stumbling thing to, get my footing. But anyway, the point is, the dog was it was one of those leashes that come out of the automatic thing, and they can go a long way on it.
Yeah, the retractable leashes.
The retractable, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that was one little story. But one time I was in Home Depot shopping in plumbing, and a Rottweiler on the leash came around the corner, and all of a sudden, I didn't see it, started, that vicious barking.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd pass out when I turned and looked at it. So my point was, they should have a muzzle on a dog that large.
Well, now this was, I'm guessing the Rottweiler, not held out as a service animal at all. This was just a pet in the store with the owner? Probably, yes. Okay, so no vest on the Rottweiler.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like that was just a pet. And I think you're right. I think, you always want to have your animals under control, whether they're in public, especially when they're in public, I should say. And, especially an animal like a Rottweiler. I mean, those are amazing, beautiful creatures, but if they bite, it's good. It's going to leave a mark. And
yeah, big one like that. Oh, yeah. I love pets, but I just think they're, and you said that they can't ask for verification of the fact that it is a service dog?
I didn't say that. That was Elizabeth from Tampa who said that. And I said it wouldn't surprise me if that's the law, like as far as how nosy they can be into your private health concerns when you're shopping. But I think the law does require, if you have a service animal, I think you have to prominently display the service animal in a vest so that everyone's aware. And the law polices this by saying if you misrepresent a non-service animal as a service animal, it's a crime that's punishable.
I see. Well, in any case, most of the time it's just fine. But yeah, they need to be under control for sure.
Agreed. Joanne, you stay safe with all these animals around you, okay?
You too. God bless.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All righty, 877-943-9673. It's great to hear from Joanne, one of our regular callers. So, Joanne, we appreciate you taking the time to call in. And if you're trying to get through, Joanne hanging up does open up a line, 877-943-9673. Or you can email me, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, let's go to Inglewood and let's talk to Ricky. Ricky, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Ricky. How can we help?
I've had a service dog for many, many years. And there is a difference between a service dog and an emotional support dog. And they don't have to wear a vest, a service dog. They have to have some sort of identification. I have a neck chain, and the dog has a neck chain. He's a 110-pound German Shepherd, very friendly. I allow people to pet him. I take him to the hospital, the ER to help with the kids when they're there to calm down to help them relax. But the service dogs are allowed on airplanes, and by federal law, I have a copy of the law in front of me. I have a card. Wherever I'm allowed to go, the dog's allowed to go. And on airplanes, he can sit in the seat next to me. That's not so, though, for emotional support animals. There is a difference.
Well,
and they cannot. Go ahead.
Ricky, I appreciate you calling in to clarify. So you're saying that it has to be prominently displayed on the animal. They're a service animal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a vest. You said it can be some sort of collar that they're wearing, something like that?
Right. On his collar, I have a picture. It's the size of a badge like you'd use at a corporation, a little ID card.
Okay.
It has my picture and his picture. And actually, it has a barcode on it. And there is a website where you can check to see if this is really a bona fide service animal. I've forgotten it's a federal website where you can go and somebody can, and actually the card that I have is a TSA approved a card. They have a website where they can scan that and they can check up to see why the dog is needed and all the information about the dog.
I wonder if
so if you Google.
I wonder if Mo's listening right now, and if he can call in with the TSA perspective or a TSA story on service animals. And Ricky, you know how some people you just meet and you can tell they're a good person?
Yeah.
That's exactly the vibe I'm getting from you, Ricky. Like, you take your service animal who is designed to help you to the hospital to help hospitalize children.
Yep. He's my buddy. I mean, he takes care of me. I take care of him. When I got him, I've had German Shepherds my entire life. I lost my two Shepherds many, many years ago and wasn't ready for another dog, but I lucked into my current dog. His name's Wyatt Earp, by the way.
Oh my gosh. What a great name. How did you come up with the name Wyatt Earp for your German Shepherd?
I like cowboy movies and stuff like that. And I said, that sounds like a pretty good name.
And
my other Shepherd.
Hopalong Cassidy just didn't have the same ring.
No, it didn't.
Okay. But, your other Shepherd, you were going to say, Ricky?
Right. I had two other Shepherds before I needed a service animal. His name was Pat Garrett, and the female was Molly Malone. But in any case, when I lost both of those animals, I wasn't really ready for another dog. And by luck, after several months, I lucked into him. He was a rescue. He was only a couple of 3 months old. And I was headed back to Los Angeles for a visit and thought I would go check out what I thought was a breeder. And it turned out to be a German Shepherd rescue. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and the dog came home and the tickets went back, and I never made it back.
Ricky, I'm just envisioning what your backyard looks like with like multiple dog houses and sort of a sign that says like the OK Corral with Pat Garrett and Wyatt Earp hanging out there. So, well, listen, I'll tell you right now, the world needs more Rickies and Wyatt Earps in it. And you keep doing what you're doing, Ricky.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for the call. Have a great day. All righty. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. Peter, the intern, you have a comment. Go.
Yeah. So I have some family members that work for the circuit court, the 13th Circuit Court in Tampa, and the CJC. So it's like the child crimes section of it. And whenever the children are talking to the cops about what happened to them, all these different things, obviously it's like emotional and straining and hard for them. And they actually have service dogs there to help comfort those kids. Because I mean, when you're sitting in a room with two cops asking you about what happened, your parents can't be in there; it's just you. So they have these. I think that they're labs that come around and they kind of comfort these kids while they're going through that.
And there was an article years ago about the effect animals have on your emotions and the blood pressure drop. I heard something like, and I don't have the story obviously, but it's something like your blood pressure can drop 20 points when you start petting your dog. And we have 4 of them. And I know that when I start, loving on one of the dogs and, petting the dog when I get home from a stressful day, it does. I mean, I can feel my blood pressure begin to calm down. So there's a science to that. And that's why we need more Rickies and Wyatt Earps going to the hospitals and helping kids. So I can't think of a higher calling than helping hospitalized children. So, way to turn the show around, Ricky. I appreciate that call. All right, let's go to a very patient Chris in North Tampa. Chris, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hey, Counselor, how you doing?
Hey, another regular. Chris, how you been? It's been a while since you called us.
Yeah, I don't want to abuse the privilege, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate your consideration, Chris. How can we help you today?
It's funny that you mentioned how you can tell the caliber of someone just by talking to them. Well, apparently my gauge on that issue is broken because 2 months ago I had a car accident, and we got to talking, me and the guy that hit me, and I didn't file a police report or anything. He told me he'd make it right. Well, here we are 2 months later, and I haven't been again in touch with him. And he's been dodging me. I mean, he gave me accurate information. He gave me his phone number, gave me his address.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, he was on the next street over from me. So, but apparently, I'm going to have to file suit.
Yeah, and do you have an attorney yet representing you on that, Chris?
No, I don't.
All right. Give me a call at the office next week. We'll get you set up with somebody who can help you on that. But always, for those of you listening, if you're in an accident, at least have the police show up and do a report. And this is the reason why. You just want to, it's like Gorbachev said, trust but verify. It's just, you want to make sure the police made out a report. They're not necessarily citing anyone. And it's just good paperwork, create that paper trail. But Chris, appreciate you calling in. Are you going to say something about wishing there was a second hour to the show like you normally do?
Oh, I didn't want to pester you about it. So.
All righty. Well, Chris, we appreciate you calling in. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, okay?
Patrick, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. 877-943-9673. All right, next let's go to Sarasota. We're going to talk to Sandy. Sandy, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Patrick, we love your show. We listen to it every Saturday.
Oh, thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome. I'm a retired flight attendant over 23 years now, but I remember back in the 60s and in the 80s when flying, they used to put the big service dogs, the German Shepherds, behind the bulkhead. But then I flew on a commercial, like maybe 6 years ago, and I saw them trying to take a big service dog and put him in the seats, between the seats, and I felt so bad for that animal. But I wasn't part of the crew. I wasn't, part of the company. And I just thought, wow, don't you guys know to put those huge dogs behind the bulkhead? And they were always happy there. There's a lot of room for them.
Yeah. And do you mind sharing with us with which airlines did you fly?
Well, years ago, United. Yeah.
It's my favorite airline to fly.
Well, whatever.
You sound so loyal.
No, I'm not going to say anything. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Sandy,
well, they're Continental now, but that's another story.
Well,
anyway.
Sandy, we appreciate your kind words about the show and your faithful listenership. So you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, okay?
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to reach me, Attorney Patrick Smith, at the office during the week. That office line, 877-754-6764. Again, the toll-free office line to schedule your appointment in Sarasota, Sun City Center, Clearwater, 877-754-6764. All right, quickly, let's go to James in Clearwater. James, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. James, I have about a minute.
Sure. Just a clarification. You cannot ask the person what their physical ailment is, but you definitely can ask them what particular thing that dog does for them, what trick, what act, or whatever it is. My wife's brother and his wife raised the dogs, that are used for those purposes. It takes years and thousands of dollars to train one of these properly. And about 80% of actual service dogs have been attacked by so-called emotional support dogs. It's not a pretty sight there. So it's you think about it, grocery store, and you're sitting there, they got them in the cart where the kid sits, and they got, come on, you're putting
Yeah. There's a lot of families listening, so don't end that story, James. I'm going to cut you off. I don't want to hear the end of that story, and I know there's a lot of listeners who don't want to hear the end either. But we get the point, and it's well taken that the properly trained animals versus the ones that aren't. So, James, appreciate you calling in. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. This has been the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. We'll be back with you next week. 877-943-9673. You can give us a call with your legal question next week. Again, to reach us at the office during the week, 877-754-6764. Again, that toll-free office line, 877-754-6764. You can always visit the website to re-listen to today's broadcast. That's attorneypatricksmith.com, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. And everyone stay safe, God bless, and go Gators.
The preceding was sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. W282CI Tampa, W271CY Lakeland, W262CP Bayonet.